Digital Families Across the Lifecourse is a knowledge exchange programme by the Centre for Research on Families and Relationships, funded by the Scottish University's Insight Institute. We want to find out more about the impact of digital technology on everyday life. To help us think about these issues, we asked members of the public to tell us about their experiences.
For me, it would be banking. All the things my kids are using that I'm not entirely sure what they're doing.
My dad, the radio I got for Christmas, digital.
Luddite.
Think about computers.
I wouldn't say physical technology, I'd say more software technology is digital rather than hardware.
I don't know what that means.
From the phone in your pocket to the interactions you make on the internet, to how you're identified now through gov.verify and things like that.
Don't understand it because I never use it.
It's the present now, it's the future to come. Heavens knows where we're going to go from that.
I've got friends that live in Australia that when they first moved over, we did do kind of Skyping for it, but not very often, or Facebook.
I lived in Britain before the whole, internet 4G thing, and just to be in touch with my friends and family in France was a bit more complicated.
I've got an auntie in America and I Facebook her.
A lot of our family lives far away, so they just jump on the phone and they could talk to the kids, or you could keep in contact with people. Even my mother, who's 86, has an iPad and an iPhone, and I can FaceTime her. She's in Stranraer, so that's quite good for me because I can actually see her.
I only use it to talk to my uncle who's in Germany.
I do, yeah. I remember Betamax, VHS.
It's like another world. With digital stuff coming in, like the phones, etc. There was none of that when I was younger.
Yeah, I remember those days. And being outside rather than indoors.
When I was young, there was a PS2, but I never played it. I was about adventuring, going walking places and going out on my bike all the time, so I didn't have all this technology surrounding me.
Without any phones or anything.
It was better. I remember a time when the world was at peace, and nobody was Facebook and saying that I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that to you. It was face to face sort of stuff.
It's just so fast nowadays. I liked it. It was carefree. You didn't have to worry as much, you know what I mean?
I think we're just becoming too dependent on it.
We have got a problem with digital inclusion because it's still a fairly expensive technology. If you can afford it, it's absolutely marvellous.
Well, I would say everything's so involved in it now. Should there be some reason for it to all go down, it would be disastrous.
It's made the world very unsociable, I think, because nowadays people would rather text someone or message someone over Facebook rather than give them a phone or speak to them face to face.
I think like everybody else, for his age group, his parents worry about how much time he spends, and his older brother, they spend a lot of time.
The fact we're addicted to it, and if you forget your phone or you haven't been online for a while, you kind of feel that you're missing out on something, which is a bit scary at times.
I don't know if it would be the easy access to the internet, and not so much for my kids because they're still a little bit young yet, but I know through other friends social media can have an impact on children in a kind of negative way.
None of the kids go out and play anymore, so it's had a detrimental effect to health, to obesity and things like that, because kids are not as active as they were.
With kids now, when you put a picture up, you have to put all these settings just to make sure only your friends and family are seeing it, instead of it hitting the internet and then people you don't want seeing your kids is actually getting access to your kids.
There's an increase in pornography and all the things that are the not good side of human nature, if you like.
I think it's the hacking that's sometimes too easy for people, that they can hack into things.
Well, we've discussed and worried a lot about the amount of time our kids spend with their noses pressed against the screen.
If we do not put a limit to it, then the good of digital technology have become evil. Like the Facebook and all these new apps coming up, we have to put a restriction to it. most especially for kids. Even for we adults too, we have to learn how to manage our time. Because at times, if you don't know how to manage your time, you just spend days on playing with computers and all this, and you waste your time.
I don't allow them at the dining table anymore because they just don't know how to talk. They don't have to know how to tell you about their day.
I think people being able to access your details. Yeah.
Antisocial behaviour.
Yeah, it does. It encourages.
Laziness.
It's intrusive. If you've got a mobile phone, people think they can phone you any time of the day, and if you don't answer, they're like, what was wrong with you? Why did you not answer your phone?
I would say terrible Wi-Fi.
Well, the lack of conversation with people. They never talk to you nowadays.
Everything Skype. Who'd have thought 30 years ago you'd be able to open the computer and speak to your family on the other side of the world in an instant? It's revolutionary.
TV.
Telephone. My mobile phone. Take it everywhere with me. It's always on me. I can do anything on it.
The camcorder is brilliant.
Probably the internet and all the, like everyone, I suppose, we just became so addicted to it, didn't we?
Video calling is that I work away from the kids, so when I'm on the bus or when I'm at work or something and I'm on my break, I get a chance to see the kids when 10, 20 years ago you couldn't have that.
The interconnectedness, and immediate access to information for school or whatever.
But you have everything on your phone these days. Sat-navs, radio, Walkman.
Yeah, email.
Part of something that we do as our living involves a holiday cottage that I operate for a friend, and all of my bookings for that, all of my communications are done by email, by a website. I use Airbnb, so basically that facilitates this long-distance business that I operate.
Just the fact that it's quick and easy, it's good. I mean, just the fact that you've got information any time you want it or require it.
I suppose it's this instant thing that you get with photographs and memories, that you can take photographs from the 60s and now you've got them right on your iPad. Fantastic.
Yeah. Like browsing the internet for things before you buy them. Searching.
Yeah.
My 13-year-old is quite a clever child anyway, but he's learned a lot of things from the internet, from using his devices that we didn't have. If you wanted to find out things, you had to go to the library and look them up. He can, when he has a thought and says, how does that work? What happens to this? He looks it up. And so he's got that information. So in some ways it is really good, because then we had to either ask our parents or go to the library and find them out, and he can find them out now.
Without a doubt, the availability of personal computers and the World Wide Web, Berners-Lee's got to be a lot to be thanked for.
Things like prescriptions and that, you want to get a prescription from your doctor passed over to the chemist. You can get all that done and they'll come and deliver it for you, and it's all done through the internet.
Being able to listen to my music and be able to get into contact with people that I like.
The youngest one that won't come to the camera had to get her tablet taken off her because she tries to spend far too much time on it.
Everyone's just kind of in the room, separate.
We've bought good quality Wi-Fi and stuff, so they all disappear off to their bedrooms with their tablets and phones and stuff and do their own things. So yeah, it helps keep harmony in the house.
I want to be on it for so long, and I can't have that. I didn't like that, so I like to know what she's up to, and I normally turn the Wi-Fi off so she can't get it.
We moved house recently, and we had to share an Xbox, and it was his, so I was kind of not really get on it that much. We would sometimes fight over who wanted to go on it and who didn't. And then we moved into a new house. I got my own one, so it's kind of, we don't really fight over that anymore. So.
When my daughter's on the iPad or whatever, you could be talking away and she's distracted by it, it's just so yeah, it does cause some problems, aye.
It sometimes can when I'm on my phone a bit too much.
I think social media is the big one. It's get off the phone.
It's my turn to use the tablet. You've got my phone. It's my turn on the Xbox. You've got the all the time.
It's a great way to connect with people. Like, for instance, most of our family live overseas, so that's a great way to talk to them.
It helps when I get my daughter's schoolwork, the iPads, whatever.
I would say I much prefer to live in the past. Unfortunately, I have to move on because of my children. I've got to learn how to use an iPhone, an iPad, I've got an Apple computer, and I've got to keep up to date with all that, and it's quite difficult when you get to my era.
Going by my daughter, and I like to order things online and all the rest of it. Like, you know, it's a lot easier. It saves her from going out doing shopping and that.
Well, I go on a lot to go onto YouTube. I watch Howard Henry and songs.
I'll be honest, the kids can teach my partner things on the tablet now and iPads. It's all driven into them at school now, and it does aid and benefit the learning and development at school.
While we were in Africa long ago, if you have families abroad, you have to wait for months for letters to come, and phones were not there. So you might have family abroad. If the letter does not come, you never hear from them. But just now, I could pick up my phone and say hello to my dad, and he hears me. That makes life much more easier.
The film was very interesting because it was a summary of all the things that all the academic research actually shows, which is that for many people the internet's scary, but they realise that it's also very useful. And I think for everybody it's about getting that balance between the good bits and protecting yourself against the bad bits.
The film was very interesting. It's many of the aspects I could concur in my own personal life as well as in terms of the research. So there are a whole range of different types of interactions here, and I think one of the challenges is, as a researcher, is actually capturing that diversity in different sectors of the population, and it's very easy for us as researchers to connect with people like ourselves, but it's much harder to connect with some of the more excluded people who have less opportunities to engage or have the ability or knowledge to engage with research and what that means.
I really enjoyed the film, and I thought a lot of the concerns that people expressed, I had also heard expressed by some of the people I talked to. Obviously my study wasn't concerned with things like Xboxes or particularly with what young kids were doing and so forth, so those concerns didn't relate to specifically what I was doing, though I thought they were very important. I thought the film illustrated the variety of ways in which digital technologies impact on people's everyday lives, and a lot of people, several people in the film did talk about how useful new technologies are for keeping in touch with people, which was something I also found. Perhaps they didn't say something I worry about or wonder, no, not worry, wonder about, which is, you know, to what extent are we all being encouraged to keep in touch all the time?
Yeah, I thought the film was great because it really drew attention to quite a wide range of views on technology. Obviously it highlighted some of the multiple ways in which these technologies are being used by people across the generations, and also for sort of cross-cultural and long-distance relationships. So I think in a short film it really brought out the wide range of ways in which the technology is used, as well as some of the concerns that this is raising for parents, for children, for grandparents, and so on. At the same time, I think the film was also really helpful in illustrating some of what I've called these normative ways of thinking about technology in terms of the good versus the bad, the beneficial versus the harmful, which is what we're trying to sort of think beyond slightly.
Well, I think the film is a great idea because it brings in, the realities of people's daily living into, our working sphere. Because here, we're academics or practitioners or policymakers that work in this field, but we are detached from the real world sometimes, and actually having real people's voices saying, well, what's it really like, rather than just academics theorising or trying to conceptualise it. And I think it really brought home the diversity and the complexity of digital technologies and how it is, making a changing world.
I think the film showed in a very human and often energizing way how many people come to conclusions or think of things that lie behind the internet and just what is it. It had, I would think, a couple of hundred people in all who had contributed to it, because there was families, there was individuals, there was different age groups, and they were all saying things which represented their own personal view or opinion of what goes on. And I think that too has come out today and links to the film very well, is how it's an individual matter and how society and communities need to work with individuals to get the best from it.
I'm Samantha Punch from Sociology at the University of Stirling. I was part of the programme team that organised the seminar, and the overall aims of the seminar is to look at both the positive and negative ways that digital technologies are affecting family lives. Previous seminars looking at childhood, the next seminar looking at older age, so we're moving through the life course. And I think what's been interesting is that we are here today digital residents, and the questions that we're discussing might look very different if you actually had the digital natives here, children and young people who've grown up with these kinds of digital technologies. I think sometimes the generational gap means that we tend to focus on the fears and concerns around the use of digital technologies rather than looking at the positive ways they impact upon our daily life. And I think it's interesting to move away from moral panics around the fears of, say, online safety for children and think about, well, how is it being embedded just in our daily comings and goings. And I think one thing what we're hoping for is that new collaborations will come out of this between academics and practitioners, and what we're hoping is that people will reflect on all these issues and think about what are the implications for policy and for practice, and importantly, what are the new avenues for future research.
The age profile of those who remain offline is older, that the social profile is predominantly DE, and that very often, although they're working, they're on a low income. My name's Alison Mitchell, and I'm Head of Digital Participation at Scottish Government. And my main focus is working with people who aren't online at the moment and how we help to get them online, and also how we help to improve the skills base of people who are online in Scotland. Most people in Scotland do use the internet, about 82% use the internet, but beneath that headline figure, we know that a lot of people who are on lower incomes and who are older or may have a disability don't have the same access. So although 82% are online, only about 50 to 60% of those who live in social housing are online. One of our main aims is to make sure that we can provide affordable broadband so that everybody can get the link to the internet and enjoy all the benefits that the digital technologies can bring for them.
Hi, I'm Douglas White. I'm the Head of Advocacy at the Carnegie UK Trust. We're a charitable foundation based in Dunfermline but working across UK and Ireland. We were set up by the philanthropist Andrew Carnegie in 1913 with a mandate to improve the well-being of people across the UK and Ireland. And in the 21st century it seems obvious to us that people's well-being is impacted upon by their engagement with digital technology. So we have a big programme of work around improving people's access to digital, seeking to maximise the benefits of that but also mitigate the risks. And clearly family life is a critical contributor to people's well-being in many different ways, and therefore the way in which digital impacts upon family life, enhances it and changes it is something that's of great interest to us.
I'm Juliet Jane from the University of the West of England, and today I was talking about a project that looked at how mobile workers, people who travel with their work, connect back home using digital technology, in particular thinking about how they connect into those ordinary aspects of daily life that they might otherwise miss. The main idea that I was talking about was that the fact that people don't spend long periods of time being digitally connected just on the off chance of interacting, perhaps sitting down and having a cup of tea together virtually, but actually how they connect in very short periods in what we might call a glimpse into home, and that could be synchronous communication using Skype or just a phone call, or it might be that they've sent somebody a picture that arrives later into their inbox, and when they have a moment to have a look at the baby giggling at home, then they've had that opportunity. My main conclusions today were that technology has probably got helped a lot in enabling people to maintain care and life at home at a distance. But it is very tricky to have a more embedded relationship through the virtual community, or virtual technology rather, because of the timing, things like being able to find the right time to talk, you may be in a different time zone. So therefore, that instead of having technology with you all the time and being part of family life at a distance, it is very limited to these short interactions that may be synchronous or asynchronous. But at the moment, not everybody's using technology to its fullest limits, and some are using it in particular ways. So it isn't a sort of one-size-fits-all, and there's still lots of questions about what the implications for that are in the future, and the way that future of work and working away from home will play out, and how employers might need to deal with thinking about that, where they have employees who do have to work away from home.
My name is Sophie Bowlby, and I'm from the Universities of Reading and Loughborough. And what I was talking about was a study of the ways in which women in their 50s keep in touch with people that are important to them. And that could be family, could be immediate family, or it could be step family, uncles and aunts and so forth, or it could be friends. And in looking at that, one of the things I found was that communicating by phone or by text were particularly important ways that people kept in touch. But also Skype or FaceTime, things like Facebook particularly were valuable for family contacts. And people valued the ability to get some kind of glimpse of the sort of material reality of what their friends or family were doing. An important finding was that people really value meeting face to face, and one of the things that particularly texts and phoning can do is help people plan those meetings. People are very busy and they have to fit in meetings into a busy life. So planning by text, are you free on Saturday kind of thing, was very helpful. But also a lot of texting particularly is simply expressing the fact that people are concerned for one another. And it's not necessarily the content of the information that people are passing. You know, I'm sitting in a cafe at the moment having a cup of coffee. What they're really saying is, you know, I know you care about me, I care about you, I just want to tell you that I'm interested, and I sort of call that patting each other. So planning and patting are important, but also sending pictures and postcards to kind of illustrate what people are up to. That's another very important thing that people do.
I'm Natasha Mautner and I'm based at the University of Aberdeen Business School. I was talking this morning about a project that we've been doing looking at the use of technology in everyday work and family practices. And what we're trying to do in this project is to think about the relationship between technology, work and family in a way that's slightly different to some of the normative framings that we see in the media, in popular books and culture, in which technology, digital technologies are really presented in terms of either their beneficial or their harmful impact on work and family life. So we're trying to think about this issue slightly differently, to think about how digital technologies are not so much impacting on these everyday practices, but they're changing the very nature of them. They're changing the way in which we do friendship, the way in which we care for our families, the ways in which we engage with work. The issue that we were really wanting to draw attention to through our project is that there's a lot of other issues going on besides just technologies embedding themselves within everyday practices. So there's all sorts of issues in what we might think of sort of backstage issues behind the technology. One example we gave today is around the terms and conditions that we engage with technologies like Facebook or Xbox, and the ways in which often we have limited control over the terms in which we engage with these technologies, and then there are obviously issues around privacy and confidentiality and how the data that's collected from our engagement with the technologies is then used by third parties, sometimes for commercial gains and so on. So we were just trying to really highlight some of those wider but also more deep-rooted issues around technology use that perhaps have received less attention within the context of debates around technology, work and family.
Hi, I'm Claire Simpson. I'm from Parenting Across Scotland, a partnership of children's charities and adult relationship organisations, and our organisation is one of the sponsors of this event because obviously families are interacting with digital and it's changing families, and families are thinking more about it and needing help in how they use it. A lot of the talks today were about research and were very much sort of focused on a particular thing. I suppose mine was quite wide-ranging. We've got 9 different charities, so it was different observations from the charities about how digital technology is affecting the organisation, the people that they're working with. So that might be adoption, for example, and how that's both facilitating search and making it easier to find birth parents, but also meaning that people find their birth families more easily, and sometimes that's not always safe. Sometimes it makes contact a bit more risky, or sometimes it just plunges people into things very immediately without having any reflection. All the technology feels as though it reflects what's happening in the world anyway, and it amplifies and distorts it. And so a lot of the families that we work with are poorer families, so talking about access there, and increasingly more families are accessing the internet, but whereas a family like mine might have several devices to do so, and my son might be able to do his homework at home, for some families they might just have one pay-as-you-go mobile, and obviously you're not going to be able to look up things for your homework. So partly about the inequality, partly about risk, and the debate in a lot of work with children is about how we manage risk and play, and we often say that children should take more risks so that they can learn about resilience. But when we talk about the internet, we talk about actually, let's stop the risks, let's shut it all down and protect people. But actually it's a digital world that people are going to be living in, that children are going to progress to, and they need to learn how to manage those risks.
Hello, I'm Alex Stobart from Midex Community Interest Company, and my talk's going to be about identity and how people can keep safe online using personal data stores to interact with the rest of the world. We saw from the study that there's a huge variety of implications of the internet on individuals and families and communities, and often people don't necessarily understand what may be out there and what the internet may represent. So the purpose of my talk was to help people understand how people can take more control, how people can have personal control over their personal data, and then be able to transact online, a bit like they'd be starting to learn how to drive. You can then do things in stages, you can learn with someone else, you can have a support worker, and you can interact with organisations on the internet more safely and more securely and in the way you choose.
I'm Stuart Valentine, I'm the Chief Executive of Relationships Scotland. Our organisation works largely with couples and families around issues of relationships, divorce, separation, family problems. We see approximately 15,000 people each year, and what we're finding is increasingly couples are bringing into the counselling room a lot of issues that are connected in some way to digital technology. There's a solicitors firm that recently spoke about 1 in 5 divorces, specifically mentioning Facebook as a contributing factor. And what we're finding in the counselling rooms is that more and more people are coming in and talking about things, issues around the internet, issues around fidelity, access to pornography. And what we're seeing is that there's just this drastic kind of input into intimate family lives that the internet and technology has. What we're finding across the board is that this can be both positive and negative. The internet and other ICT is great for people keeping in touch, couples texting each other during the day to keep in touch, families contacting through Skype and things like that. But at the same time, we're also seeing the downside of that, which is an accessibility to a great deal of sexual content on the internet that is having quite a damaging effect on families where that's done in secret and then one partner finds out about it. So I found certainly today's conference to be excellent. There's a lot of very useful material that we can take back, and hopefully there'll be more conferences like this in the future.
I think today's been a really useful opportunity to hear from a range of different perspectives, people coming with academic research, from government, from industry, and to hear about the different ways that different sectors are approaching quite complex, contested issues to which we don't necessarily know the solutions. And I think by working together across these different sectors, we can understand these things better and work out where we want to go in the future.
We do hope that there will be collaborations. For example, me personally, I'm hoping that there might be collaborative PhD studentships developed where we work with organisations to get PhD students on board to take these issues forward. I'm hoping that other similar conversations are happening around the room, and people's networks are widening, and that the conversations will continue.
This video was made as part of a project exploring the impact of digital technology on family life, funded by the Scottish University's Insight Institute.